Paula Show is on. The Paula Show. Come on, one and all. I extend an invitation to the Paula Show. Join in the conversation. Transforming behavior, recognizing our Savior, overcoming hurdles, achieving dreams. Together we can succeed.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to season 14 of The Paula Show. It's our first program for the season, and Dr. Dwayne Thwaites is here with us. In late December 2019, a deadly new coronavirus emerged in China. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the WHO Director General, on March 11th, incidentally, my birthday, he declared the coronavirus a pandemic. What does that mean for Antigua and Barbuda? What does that mean for the Caribbean? What does that mean for the globe? Stay with us on The Paula Show. Our conversation tonight is about the coronavirus. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Thank you for staying with us on The Paula Show. Dr. Dwayne Thwaites is here with us tonight, and we're speaking about the coronavirus. Before we start, how are you? What have you been doing? I miss you.
I miss you too, Paula.
Yes, what have you been doing?
As the usual, just working, trying to keep the men of Antigua healthy.
When are you going to start with us ladies?
Soon enough.
Soon enough? All right, I got you. Pandemic, March 11th, my birthday. I'm going to remember my birthday for a long time, 2020. What does that mean, pandemic? It means that a lot of us are going to die?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
It's pandemic. First of all, within a region or within a country itself, you declare within a particular period of time the amount of disease entity within that area at a particular time is considered to be an epidemic. And once it has extend out throughout the world to the different countries, for the meaning of pan, the whole globe itself, and within the world, if there's a lot of countries have a epidemic, it now becomes a pandemic because it's spread right across the world.
There are more than 118,000 cases in 114 countries, and over 4,000 persons have lost their lives.
To be
scary.
For you, it sounds scary, but when we look at the ratio, it's a very small amount of people comparison to
over 7 billion people on planet
to most
Earth.
of the diseases that are out there. Cancer kills at least 49,000 people yearly, and so that's pretty much a pandemic. We don't.
So strange enough, why would they not call that a pandemic? Because cancer is pervasive.
It's been there for a while. It takes a little while to catch up with people, and a lot of people die from cancer on a yearly basis. A lot of people die from influenza virus on a monthly basis, more so than you do for
common cold.
For COVID, the common cold, which is a coronavirus. If you to understand, so we're looking at maybe 20 to 30 persons a month for the coronavirus
across the globe.
Across the globe, and when you look at other disease entity, as I said, cancer per month, you have all the other diseases. Heart attack is nearly over 20,000 people a year, 30,000, 39,000 people a year to die from.
So we are overreacting?
We are pretty much, in an essence. Programs like you make people overreact.
Do you know how many bottles of sanitizers I've purchased, and Lysol, I've got them stocked up.
I know.
So, I mean,
people are doing that. I mean, influenza is like 28,000 a month that dies from influenza disease. So there are lots of variables within the numbers that we're looking at. But in all true sense, we have to look at transmission and why this disease has
But I'm going to go there in
far.
a second. But you know what? When we hear about coronavirus, we think some persons are thinking it's one. but it's coronavirus. It's a group of viruses, and the
Absolutely.
COVID-19 falls beneath that category called coronavirus.
Yes, and that is so true. There is a wide variety of the different coronavirus, and the more prolific and dangerous ones that we know about is the SARS, okay?
MERS.
SARS, MERS, are two of the more predominant ones, which we have seen mostly over the last 10 to 15 years that we've seen develop swine flu. All of these things are variations of this.
Yeah, because I usually hear about MERS, and then when I dug some more, I realized MERS, CoV, C-O-V, and then SARS, C-O-V too.
Yeah. So actually, the correct name for the COVID-19 is
Yes.
SARS-CoV-2, but because of the close association with SARS, they did not want to continue to call it that. So the World Health Organization came up with the name COVID-19, which is the CO
to make the differentiation.
CO is corona, VI, viral, and D is disease. So COVID-19 disease.
Interesting.
And you had SARS-CoV-2. And again, because the names were so similar, they didn't want to really cause any confusions with the the two viral entities. But again, they're within the same group, and hence the name. And now we've transferred novel, new, which is in an essence. But coronavirus on a whole has been around for decades. I mean,
it's not new at all.
Absolutely not. It's the regular flu, common cold that we see that is there. There's so many varieties of virus and viral disease that are out there. And as I said, one of the major ones that we see on a yearly basis is the influenza virus. And the influenza virus on a whole changes almost every year. So that's why we have to go ahead and get these vaccine shots, and they try to variate them every year to try and be comprehensive.
Should we take those shots? Because sometimes you take the shot and you're still affected by influenza.
You get another type of the disease, another influenza. What I
Is
do
it called a strain, another strain?
Another strain.
Okay.
What I do recommend, though, is for people who are immunosuppressed, people who takes medications that immunosuppress, the elderly patients, those ones should they're vulnerable, and they should get the influenza virus. Bear in mind, which I'm sure you're going to segue through in a later date, is that it usually happens during the winter months that you have the virus and you have the influenza. And it's during that time of the year.
So we'll talk about the weather in a little bit, but I want
during that time of the year, they give you the vaccine.
The vaccine. I want to take us to the wet market in Wuhan, China, because they were selling live animals, dead animals, and some persons are saying the coronavirus, COVID-19, came about as a result of bats. Now, that worries me because some of us even have bats living beneath our roofs. So, are those bats the same bats as the bats in Antigua?
Again, when we look at strains and the varied groups, one of the things in which we look at, and sometimes it's good to talk to your vets or the people who are out. The bats that we have here is a different variety to the ones that we see in Wuhan, China. It's a specific bat that lives in the eastern part of China, which carries the coronavirus, which they think is the one that is associated with the coronavirus. One of the things the geneticists, the genome people did was match the genome type for the ones that they commonly find in the bats. And what they found, there was a link, about 89 of the genes itself, a perfect match with the one that they saw in the bats. But those ones that are inside the bat are not usually human to human transfer. So what they are thinking is that one got into one of the other animals that were in the market, and that was transformed into one that could easily be transferred from animal into human. There is an intermediate host, and that one caused that to be able to transfer to humans. Bear in mind that bats are mammals like humans.
Exactly.
I always said that. I said it's so strange that they're mammals, and you know why they call them mammals? Because they
suckle their young.
Absolutely.
I did
correct.
some biology.
Oh, you did some biology, which is important.
I should have met you earlier, then I would have been inclined to be a doctor. But I say, where am I going with this biology?
And it's fascinating to see that we still come back to the biology that we do in school and everything. Because when we look at bacteria, okay, which is a little bit higher organism on the stool, compared to virus, which is our particles, viral particles, parts of the cells that just happen to exist and can exist, not outside of the human body, but they can exist in a cell, but the cell has to be attached with some kind of a life form in order for it to propagate.
So a virus would not grow on a dead body?
It would not. It will not.
It needs a live host.
It needs a live host for it to survive, because it needs DNA and RNA, which are found in the nucleus of the cells. So there's such small, tiny particles. They're microns. It's hardly visible, not visible by the eye unless you use a microscope that you can see these things. But they have to live in a host. And in some of the things that we need to understand, you have to know the basic stuff for you to be talking about these coronavirus and the spread and all this stuff. So those little particles has to attach to a living cell in order for them to live, I can't even say multiply. Yes. And that's important. But they live inside the nucleus of the cells, which is why we talk about DNA, RNA virus.
So it affects your immune system?
Well, it gets into this, it can get into this, the immune system, because it's a viral particle. It lives in the cells of the immune system, and when it bursts or breaks down, it damages the immune cells, the immune system, and so
we become compromised.
We become compromised. Now, bear in mind things like HIV disease. When HIV disease came out, one of the big problems in trying to control it was the fact of how it propagates. Because the virus for the HIV disease is an RNA virus. But the good thing, the thing that perplexed the scientists was that it could be transferred into a DNA virus. This is why it was called retrovirus, because it could flip from the RNA into DNA, so it was difficult to find something to control it and to treat. And when it flips into the DNA mode and you go after it, it flips back into the RNA. So that's why it was called retrovirus, because it flipped from one type of genome into another type, and so it became very difficult to say. Now we have SARS, not SARS, but COVID-19, which is a whole different kettle of fish. And the most important thing about the coronavirus is the fact that it could live outside the cells for a pretty long time, and that's why it is so transmittable.
Trust me, as soon as I hear somebody cough, I'm running for cover. And sometimes, I must admit, when we see persons of a certain ethnic group, we become very uncomfortable.
That is so true. You know, a while ago you gave me so many blessings. I mean, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
One of the things I used to appreciate is when you sneeze, someone will say, God bless you. No,
not anymore. Or in Espanol we say salud. We're not saying that anymore.
Nowadays, as soon as you sneeze, that's it.
Helter-skelter, we run.
And in all essence, which is such a good thing for the changing world, is that we're getting back to our basic little etiquettes. You know, when you sneeze, you must cover, you teach your kids all of this. When you cough, you must cover your mouth. And daily washing of your hands is so important. Hence, we go back into the virus and why it is causing such a pandemic, and why we are getting all so nervous about it, when in all essence every day we should have been routinely practicing these good methods, proper hygiene and all this stuff to help us prevent not just coronavirus, but all the other viral entities that are out there. So for the people who are now just realizing that these things are necessary and essential for good living. You know, your parents teach you this as you grow up. So when we look at coronavirus, and one of the things that we do know is the way how the virus shapes like a corona. It's a crown. It has these little prickly stuff on the outside, which now attaches to the different parts and the mucosa of the mouth, the larynges. What it likes is really the lung tissue. So in its endeavor, because it survives better there, it's mucus, there's all kind of stuff, and it can root its way in. And so in getting into the lung tissue, it develops into a pneumonia, makes breathing a little bit difficult. So these are some of the symptoms that the persons would have. But first it has to get to these areas. And the way how it does that is through the sinuses of the nostril. It gets into mucus layers and into the back of the mouth.
What about ears?
It doesn't penetrate the ears
or
the
the private parts?
It doesn't do any of those. You start thinking HIV disease and
no,
herpes.
I'm just thinking.
Those are viruses
No, I'm
too.
just thinking any opening.
No, it's particularly and the area that it goes to is the mouth.
What about the eyes?
It doesn't get in through the eyes. This is what the scientists are saying. It's usually through either the mouth or the nose, which it attaches to, and then hence why they keep telling you wash your hands, wash your stomach. The important thing about the viruses itself, it's the length of stay on the outside. And most viruses, once it gets out of the body, it just disappears, it dies, it desiccates, and it goes away. But the COVID-19 in itself, they live for a good 7 to 8 hours outside the body. So it's easy for you to can't touch that, pick up the COVID virus, it lives on your hands, and then by just a mere touch or something, it gets into your. We got to be mindful.
Which means that we have to consistently wash our hands, because once you wash your hands, it goes.
You can get rid of it, and whatever formulation of your disinfectants that you use would help to kill the viral tissue. Because again, as we stated previously, it needs a host.
It needs a host.
It needs something
a live body.
Live body for it to live. So the longer it stays outside, it desiccates, it gets eaten, and it disappears.
Buenas noches. No cabe duda de que el mundo se está enfrentando a una pandemia para la cual ningún país está preparado. Son tiempos de solidaridad, tiempos de hermandad, tiempos de ayuda. Por eso, Cuba, como es habitual, está ayudando con los limitados recursos que tiene a otros países. Tuvimos la solicitud recientemente del gobierno de Antigua y Barbuda para que enviásemos un grupo de enfermeras, enfermeros y médicos para ayudar en la lucha contra este terrible virus. Próximamente debe llegar a Antigua y Barbuda un equipo, una brigada médica cubana, como le llamamos, integrada por 30 expertos cubanos. El objetivo es cooperar, integrarse a los 59 cooperantes cubanos que ya están en este país desde hace muchos años y dar la batalla al coronavirus. Esto lo harán con los hermanos antiguanos y otros de diversos países que trabajan en el sistema de salud de Antigua y Barbuda. Ya Cuba, desde hace 20 años, está presente en este país ayudando al pueblo de las dos islas gemelas. Nos sentimos orgullosos de poder poner en práctica lo que nos enseñó nuestro líder y lo que nos enseñó la revolución, que es ser internacionalista y cooperar con aquellos que los necesiten. Recientemente salieron de Cuba brigadas para ayudar a Nicaragua, Venezuela, Surinam, Granada, Barbados. Y muy pronto, como les dije, llegará la brigada para Antigua y Barbuda, y también vendrá otra brigada para San Vicente y las Granadinas. tenemos un gran compromiso de trabajar junto con los hermanos caribeños y con otros que así lo soliciten para erradicar el coronavirus, como hicimos en África con el ébola. No me queda más que pedirles que se protejan, que se cuiden, que tengan en cuenta las recomendaciones que están dando las autoridades sanitarias guiadas por la Organización Panamericana de la Salud y la Organización Mundial de la Salud. Protéjase usted, que es la manera que hay de proteger también a su familia y a los trabajadores de la salud que están en primera línea de este combate. Al llegar a la casa, lávese las manos durante 20 segundos. Tiene que hacerse un lavado profundo, a conciencia, y evitar tocar superficies que antes fueron tocadas por otras personas. Comprar los materiales que se indican para mantener la higiene y para evitar la contaminación por el virus. Esta batalla se gana con responsabilidad, con aislamiento social, distanciamiento social y con la observancia de todas las medidas que están siendo indicadas. Le decíamos a nuestro personal y al gobierno que Cuba ayudará con su experiencia, con su bondad, pero también hay que ayudarla protegiéndose ustedes, porque en la medida en que los trabajadores de la salud estén sanos, protegidos, podrán protegerlos a ustedes también. Cuenten con la ayuda solidaria de Cuba y también de otros países, porque el mundo, todas aquellas personas de buena voluntad se están incorporando a esta batalla contra la pandemia del coronavirus. Muchas gracias.
I present to you the English version of a message that was delivered by the Cuban ambassador to Antigua and Barbuda. The world is living in crucial times. We are experiencing a pandemic. And that's why this is a moment of solidarity to help each other and cooperate. As usual, Cuba is helping other countries. Upon a request from the government of Antigua and Barbuda, we are sending on Thursday, 26th March, a medical brigade of 30 nurses and medical doctors to help Cubans that are here working to face the virus, as well as to help the people of Antigua and Barbuda. We also, over the last few days, sent medical brigades to Suriname, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Barbados, Italy, Grenada, and very soon we will dispatch a brigade to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In this moment, I can give you some advice of how to behave in the circumstances. Please wash your hands for about 20 seconds and also do not touch surfaces that other persons could have been using. Please practice social distancing because you have to protect yourself in order to help protect the medical personnel, because they need to be healthy to provide good service in the island. Tonight on the Paula Show, we're speaking about COVID-19 virus, and Dr. Dwayne Thwaites is here with us.
Bear in mind I said heat, and I said heat for a reason, because the scientists are saying the warmer it is, the quicker it disappears. So if it's hot in the area, it disappears, and that's what they're
And I suppose
stating.
that's why governments in Europe and leaders in America, they're praying for summer to come quickly.
It looks that way.
They want the sun to shine quickly.
And from what we know from Wuhan and the scientists that are there, they're saying that the heat is one of the things that that will help prevent the spread.
So probably we
because
should
for
wash our hands in warm water.
Well, I was going to get to that, but you beat me to that.
I'm
This
a
is some
doctor.
of the recommendations
Yes.
of some of the scientists, that you do use warm water, that you drink more warm tea, you eat
I'm
more
already
heated
doing
food,
that.
stay away from ice and cold, because
And
they
ice
think,
cream.
yeah, they think that the virus loves those cold
yeah,
areas.
yeah.
Again, one of the things that they were looking at is it's spread during the colder months, and so that's one of the things that we have to think about when we're looking at. So it's easy for the virus when you cough,
Yes.
what we call fomites, or even the saliva which is what they use to test for it, you have a predominantly high percentage of the virus in the saliva. So when someone coughs or spits and it gets out there, it can easily get to you. This is why they give you that 3 feet radius, okay? Because they know you can't project that spit or that fomite or stuff like that.
For that
Incidentally, I don't know if you remember back in the days of TB, one of the ways that TB spread was through fomites or coughing. And people would be coughing when we used to call it the red snapper because you wouldn't even know a thing. This guy would be walking around on the bus. You know, back there I used to use Plenty bus. And these people would have TB. You had, remember, these guys used to wear the mask. TB is a bacterium, okay?
And they had a TB ward at the Halberton Hospital.
We used to,
Yeah.
we put everybody in sanitariums. They used to call them sanitarium, put them in the TB ward. So when you cough, the sputum comes up and it spreads, and that's how TB spread. It stayed a little bit longer on the area. If you drink from their cup, it would spread. Again, pretty much the same principle. People used to warn you, don't go around people with TB. They have to wear their mask. When they're with, amongst you, they had a mask on because they didn't want it. And we're going through pretty much the same phase again with this. Different thing
what
is,
goes around comes around.
It looks that way. And the different thing is, it's a virus. It's way different, a little bit more dangerous. And, you know, so you pick it up by all these little things, little spit.
So 1 second, while it's okay, the person coughs, person doesn't wash, and the person is touching his or her face, and then you shake someone's hand. In between that 8-hour period, everybody with whom you come in contact, you haven't washed your hands, you're transmitting the disease to all these people unwittingly.
Absolutely correct. Now, yeah, they were looking at the risk of transfer in the Wunan district, and they said each individual would spread the disease to 2 or 3 persons within that district. That's why it has spread so far out of the region. Most of the people who had the disease spread were in contact with someone in the Wunan district, and now we're seeing some proliferation all around from different places. Most of the ones that we're seeing basically in the Caribbean now are people who have traveled from abroad who are now coming. It's imported, and it's not like the original virus that someone is picking up. Thank God we don't eat bats. Or we don't eat
but
the
they
snakes.
know roofs and the water.
Well, but
the
again,
rainwater
remember
comes
it's a different
it's a different type of bat.
Totally different genre of the bats, the East Indian. And they had a specific name for the type of bats. I can't remember exactly what that really spreads the disease. So we're looking at from the bat, which was eaten by, maybe they were saying by these animals, I think they call them divets or civets, and that had eaten a bat, and the bat was in the market because people used to would eat the civet. The pangolins, or with those animals, they claim that they have these healing powers when you eat them, and they, you know, it was mainly the people who were in the high social class in China who were eating all these rare animals, and which they think is the reason why we're having the disease spread. Hedgehogs, snakes, the parulons. Actually, the parulons they said was good for rheumatoid disease. Again, you need to talk to your boy about these kind of things. You eat these kind of things and they get rid of these diseases. Liver disease, the pangolins were good for liver disease, rheumatism. When you eat these almonds, these are where we think that the spread has come from, and that's why it's
We're going to a break, but these Chinese people, they have a strange diet, because I read an article that donkeys are disappearing in Africa because the Africans, they're just rounding up all the donkeys, even taking their neighbors' donkeys and selling them to Chinese people, because they're of the view that by eating the donkey meat, that it has certain health properties.
Where you live?
In Antigua and Barbuda.
In Antigua, they do the same things. They take the donkey and sell them to Guadeloupe.
They used to do that. They don't do that anymore.
Trust me, they still do that. That Guadalupe boat come around and you pick up your donkey.
But is it for the same reason?
That I don't know. I know it makes good salt beef. That's what they say. So you don't even know what you're eating.
You don't even know what you're eating.
So
anyway, I'm taking a break. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. Dr. Thwaites is here with us tonight, and we're speaking about COVID-19. But of course, he's also hilarious. He has a huge sense of humor, so he has me laughing in the midst of this conversation. We'll be right back. Stay with us, please. I was listening to commentators who are reminding us that we live among viruses every day. So sometimes we forget the SARS and the bird flu and the swine flu, which was another pandemic, by the way.
The MERS.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, look, we go as far back, we could go to herpes when it first came out. Yeah, we spoke a little bit about HIV disease.
Yes, yes.
The warts, the HPV warts, all of those are viruses. And every day, the regular common cold. One of the things that
which we consistently overlook.
No, and we do, and it's there every day, every year, everywhere, anyhow, all the time, and it's always there, always changing. And the most important thing, for the common cold, we have no cure for it.
Absolutely
We talk about CMV, we talk about some virus causing cancer, disease. And so, you know, virus on a whole, they're not our best friends. And we have a lot of disease entities that people overlook that happens to us on a daily basis, which is a viral projected disease. You know, we do have some vaccines that help us with some of these diseases. We've been through chikungunya, Zika. We've been through a lot.
You know, I've never been affected by any of these. Is mumps a virus?
Mumps is a
I
virus,
remember growing up, I had mumps.
Mumps, orchitis, mumps.
Right. I never had measles. I had chickenpox.
Chickenpox.
I had mumps, and what I remember most about mumps,
the sweet potato.
they put the sweet potato, and we would eat it
by midday. You crazy?
Potato, God, and the joy is still swollen. More potato, please.
Mumps, orchitis. And in all fairness, some of these diseases are still out there. Lots of them spread by different organisms, and we just have to be on the lookout for this. This new virus makes a difference again, and
maybe because there's no vaccine for it.
There is no vaccine for it. The way how it is spread, it becomes a big deal. We didn't touch too much on the symptoms, and 98% of the people would have a fever. About
a high fever?
A high fever. They get a cough. About 78 to 80% of the people get a cough. Shortness of breath, fatigue,
headache,
a dry cough. Again, but all these
sore throat.
But all these symptoms are so general of flu.
Yeah, because it's like a flu. So how do I determine it's COVID-19?
Yeah, it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
The doctors have to go and do the test, the PCR, the test, or they take some bronchial washings and they check out the viral particles to see if it matches the COVID-19. So it's hard to differentiate. But once you see someone with the symptoms, you should really try and isolate that person. Once you have pick up the disease by doing the testing, then you should put them in the quarantine area. Again, it's the ease of spread is what is the big thing. The fact that the virus can live for so long outside the cells is what makes it the most dangerous part of it. Most people, the incubation time is about a week. But you can still spread the disease, and you can have the disease in the incubation time period and still spreading it. And then you have another 7 to 10 days afterwards where you can still be spreading the disease, where most people present with the symptoms after about the 7th day. And then afterwards, then you start to dissipate, but you could still spread the disease. So this is why the quarantine period is so long.
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a teacher, a preschool teacher, and you attend class, and they're about 20 little toddlers. You have to touch them.
Absolutely.
You have to change nappies. You have to wipe nose, and you have to be intimate.
Absolutely.
You know, touching them, and then it is found out that the teacher has COVID-19. Can you imagine all those little children going home, daddy kissing them, mommy hugging them, grandpa, grandma? I mean, this thing is serious.
But one of the good things, though, Paula, is that we haven't seen any association with the kids between the age of 0
and
to
that's
15.
the other point. Initially, they did say young children
was
and the
predisposed.
elderly.
But now
Yeah.
they're getting away from that because
Yes.
we're realizing that we don't see it in
Yeah.
the kids. And if it does, it's very transient. It goes and then
Yeah.
it comes through. Also, what they're realizing also by looking at the studies, and they've spent a lot of time studying the Wuhan people
Yes.
with about the disease entity, is that the transmission between mother to baby, we're not seeing any
Like
of those,
HIV,
like
no.
HIV used to do, or a couple of the other viral
Yeah, herpes.
disease, Epstein-Barr, all these things would be transferred, but we're not seeing that any in the kids. In the initial onset, they thought the disease affected more men than women. It was in the Wuhan district, it was about 70% of the disease were going towards men, and the smaller number were going towards the females. Now
But now
we
we're
notice that
balanced.
now it looks like it's balancing out because they thought, well, maybe the men were the ones who were transferring
Right.
the disease. But that has now balanced out. But we do
But
know...
I hear it's good to be black now because it's not affecting the black
Well-
race as much as it's affecting other persons.
Well, we don't
Other
know. We
ethnicities.
don't know if it is fake news, but and
It's
I'm
a
not
melanin man.
I don't know.
It
I'm
must,
not.
I mean, after all, something good must come out of being black.
They were looking at the disease spread, and if you notice, we don't see much of it in Africa. They've been doing some studies
noticed, yeah.
in South Africa
Yeah.
and also the Caribbean. We don't see that many of the disease again.
But we
and
don't want to assume.
we don't want to assume, and we want to make disease. The one article or the one write-up I saw, I had to laugh, where they talk about the Chinese doctor, the black guy got sick, went in, got up and walked out, and they thought he cured himself of the disease, and this is why they're saying that it doesn't affect black people.
We've been hearing a lot of things in the media, and I think a lot of us have been pretty fearful, especially with all the different things that we are already doing in our daily lives. As a healthcare professional, I also have to hasten persons that the spread of COVID-19 can be prevented in very, very simple ways. One of the major ways that we have been pushing is proper hand washing. All right? So we encourage that you're going to be washing your hands with an antibacterial soap, and you need to be doing that for at least 20 seconds. All right? So that's number one. No matter where in the world you go, this is what the main thing that we're advising persons to do. If you're at an area where you cannot access, a hand washing facility or an antibacterial soap, we also recommend the use of hand sanitizers. With the hand sanitizers, we would encourage that you ensure that it covers all the surface area of your hand, and then you're going to be rubbing it all over to make sure that it covers your hand, both of your hands completely. Furthermore, if you're sick, and again, it is a fearful time for many persons, and you may not even have the virus, but just as a precaution, if you're sick, you have the cough, you have sniffling, you may have a simple cold, call your work, let them know, stay home. Call a healthcare facility, we have a hotline, you call that hotline, let them know your symptoms, and heed to the advice that they give to you. The number is 46-COVID, all right? So if you're sick, please call the number 46-COVID, and you're gonna be heeding the advice to everything that the professionals are telling you. Furthermore, we are also encouraging that the proper use of sanitizing areas should be done. On the CDC website, you can have, they have a very nice explanation of how you can make your own sanitizers, especially now where a lot of these things are no longer on the shelves. So you can go to the CDC website and just look up, how can I sanitize my area to combat the COVID-19 condition? For persons who are sneezing or coughing, we encourage the use of tissues or napkins to cough or sneeze into. Immediately after you have coughed or sneezed into a tissue or napkin, we encourage that you dump it into a bin and then you go and wash your hands. Again, if no facilities for washing your hands available, we then encourage that you use a hand sanitizer. Your hand sanitizer should be at least 60% alcohol content. For persons who are very expressive with their hands, we encourage that they decrease the amount of touching of the face, the nose, the eyes area. I know it's very difficult, but this is one of the things that will also help to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So one of the tips I've learned, because I'm also very expressive with my hands, every time you think about touching your face, you do this. So you clasp your hands to prevent it going into your face. Some persons, on the other hand, have chosen to just keep their hands in their pockets, which is also a very effective way. As healthcare workers, we are doing everything possible to both save lives and minimize the spread of COVID-19. However, we cannot do it on our own. We need you, the general public, to also take the necessary precautions to also help us in this fight. Thank you.
Why 18 months for the vaccine? Why so long with the advances in technology? I would think in a couple of months or a couple of weeks we'd be on top of that.
One of the big things, and you're even talking about the vaccine, we're talking about the treatment for the disease with the medication that is out there. Now, what they have noticed that there is a disease, Arbidol, which they use for the influenza. I'm going to answer your question because this is one of the big problems that we have. You don't want to give out information about things until it's proven.
Yes.
Because one of the big things is that if they pick it up and next thing you know, with the little data that you have, something goes wrong, then everybody who's taking that becomes a problem, which happened with the SARS disease. Now, there are some medications out there which are doing very, very well. And if you let people go for it, they will go for it and take it right now. But you don't know side effects, you don't know. So you need a time period, really and truly, before you start to just give up vaccine. You have to study. You have to look at the studies. You have to do placebo versus medication and see what happens first. Even if they got a vaccine, they got to test these vaccines first. Got to give it some time to work because people will start to take these things before you prove anything and becomes a problem. And that actually happened with the SARS, because one or two of the medications that they had to treat the SARS, people started to use it before it was proven, and then they realized it didn't work.
It didn't work.
So it screwed up the data that is out there.
Elderberry, they say works because it increases the strength of the immune system.
There are a couple of medications that are out there. One is the Arbidol, which is approved between China, Russia, and Germany, which was used to treat the influenza, the influenza A. And what they've noted is that it looks like it's helping, but they don't want to say so.
It's not a cure, but it improves the health.
Then, because the coronavirus is an RNA virus, the medication that are used for HIV seems to have some good results so far with the treatment. So they're testing these things. So I think one was lapicinavir and ritonavir. The combination, I'm going to get to something which is very interesting for you. The combination of those two seems to work, and it works for SARS. And they had approved those quickly, but then it realized that it was working. But there is a new medication that is out there, remdesivir.
All these virs?
Yeah.
There must be a reason why they all end in vir.
Because they're the medication that you use for HIV disease.
Okay.
The adenavir, the retinavir, all of these things. And so they found that that one seems to be working. These are in studies with rats and all this stuff. Seems to be working very well in the treatment. So we're looking, even the people who the couple of studies that they did with animals that had the pneumonia, it seems like some of these medications are doing a wonderful job. And I mean, it's going to take a little while, but the results from the studies, and China has been doing a remarkable job in speeding up with all the studies. One of the things that they know works well is chloroquine. And chloroquine is the disease that we use, is a medication we use to treat malaria. I don't even know if you remember significantly that the people who have sickle cell disease, and the reason why they developed sickle cell disease was to help them protect themselves from the malaria. Chloroquine is one of the medications that we use to treat malaria. And what they have found is the chloroquine can be used to help treat the COVID-19. The COVID-19.
Wow.
It works when the virus first attaches the cells. It helps to prevent it from attaching to the cells to get into your system. And then
so you have to take it in the early stages in order for it to be effective.
And then remdesivir is the one that treats it as it gets out. And these are all nucleotides, RNA nucleotides. And so those are some of the new stuff that are coming out, that are out there. But there's all in vitro studies. These are studies within
work in progress.
Work in progress, but the results looks pretty good, and they're on top of some of these things right now, and hopefully we'll think. Some of the things that we know with it in the Wunan district, they think that at around April to May, they should have the maximum amount of the disease spread that they should have. And then we're looking at coming down at the curve. Looking at the data, which is, even if you look at the US data, right now the disease is peaking, it's getting higher.
Yes.
But with the restrictions, with the hand washing, and with all the etiquettes that your mother used to teach you, if we continue to use those things, then we can contain it, and the curve will go down. And of course, in big groups, we're trying to curtail the big groups. We're going to see what happens.
We're going to talk about those big groups in another segment, because now we have to limit our activities.
Absolutely.
I mean, nothing is happening
no
for
panorama
NFL.
For you.
No panorama? You mean he's still going to be around at Carnival? Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. He's teasing me because I don't do panorama.
Yeah.
I actually don't do Carnival. I do church. Thank you for watching the Paula Show with us tonight. We've presented to you part 1 of our coronavirus conversation with Dr. Dwayne Thwaites. Join us next week, Tuesday, for part 2 of our conversation.